So here we are again. Got quite a few requests to do this particular gun, and as soon as I've got something this week that I wanted to share as well, out of my normal realm, I thought, well, maybe now's the time to do it, I guess. So this is the VFC Umarex MP5A3 gas blowback rifle. The particular one in front of you is a very old version of that. It's a version 1. We'll go through why that matters and why it differs from the newer versions, what you might want to change if you did get one of these old ones. And I want to run some comparisons to some other things that I've got here as well. This might be a slightly longer video than we've done before. Normally I top out at about half an hour because I want to get quite deep into the MP5, and personally the MP5 is the best firearm that was ever created. I know it's limited, it's a submachine gun. They're a little bit dated these days with the smaller carbines and things like that, but MP5s are still a very important SMG, in both real terms but also in airsoft too, and I think they're a little bit more forgotten about these days, although there has been a resurgence recently both in the gas blowback and in also some of the newer platforms that we're seeing. We'll go into it as well. So let's start with what we got in front of us right now. So this is the VFC, as I said. This is version 1. This is not how it came from the factory. On this particular MP5 right now, there's a lower trigger group, which is a Heckler & Koch trigger group and selector. There are Heckler & Koch sights on here. This is an original Heckler & Koch slimline foregrip. If you see the replicas, they're more plastic. This is it's almost metallic, but without being metal. It's quite a dense polymer, almost resin-like. This has also got steel front sight replacement as well. When this gun came to me, it had this kind of trigger group, which is the later Navy type trigger group. It's still an A3. The difference between an A3 and an A5 is that an A3 has a 3-position selector. It's safe, semi-auto and full auto. The A4 and A5 models have a 4-position selector, which includes a 3-round burst. That's the difference between the A's. So the MP5 series started off with the MP5, which was a solid stock only. It had straight magazines. It did have this style of foregrip. It never came with wood. You may see people put wood kits on. It never came with wood. The G3s did, but the MP5s always had polymer fittings, black polymer fittings. Some people have retrofitted G3 wood by chopping it down and making it fit the MP5, but that's just because they like it. It looks cool, but that's not what the MP5 ever came with. I decided I wanted a more classic look, so it also came with a tropical style foregrip from VFC. This is actually a real one. It's an ex-service real one. Tropical, but the VFC one was pretty much identical. I managed to get hold of this slim foregrip many years before a gas blowback ever came out. I had a couple of these actually. I don't know where the other one went. And then later on I managed to get the trigger groups. These trigger groups, the housing without the trigger group inside it, used to come in at about £25, and that's with the selector. So that was very good, but they were a lot harder to find these days because more people were after them, and surplus supply kind of dried up a little bit as well. I still see the selectors from time to time, but I don't really see the trigger groups anymore. Hopefully maybe that'll change now that the Zib Military is coming back. I'm going to do a quick breakdown of this so you can see, and I want to tell you what this gun was like out of the box. This is my first ever VFC gun. This gun itself is I think about 13 years old now. I did have another one at the same time as well. It's slightly older, but that one moved on. The newer versions have got some differences. My original one didn't have 6mm on the top of the receiver. Here, this one does. However, it's still got Hexagon and Carc MP5. It's a unique serial number. When they came out of the box, these were externally always fantastic. This is the most realistic feeling MP5 you'll ever pick up, compared to nothing. I've had WB, and you'll see what else I've got in a moment. But it was externally stunning, but it did have some issues. If we just remove the stock, and then you can remove the recoil rod. Let's just move these magazines aside a moment. This is a genuine HK magazine clamp as well. I don't know if you can see, but it actually says H and K stamped in there. That's just stock assembly with your buffer. And then if we remove the trigger group, you can see the trigger group. Now, the real trigger groups for the early VFC MP5s, because they were a 3-shot selector as stock, you can literally drop these straight in. It requires no tools. If I remove that, you'll see just how easy it is to change the pack. So you just take the pack out, you drop it into your real pack, you take your selector, you push this little black lever forward here, so it's out of the way. Push your selector all the way in, push it down to semi-auto, to safe. It's safe, down to single shot, test it, and there she goes. So that's how easy these real lowers are to fit. When it came out of the box, they weren't that great, and it took me a little bit of trial and error with some various upgrade parts to make it run right, and anyone that had the early VFC MP5s will tell you they were problematic. One thing that is nice about the early ones is they did have the fake extractor pin in there. I used a TSC cylinder because it's a metal cylinder. The early MP5s from VFC had a plastic one, so I did change that. I have a flow restrictor valve in there. This is a zinc, not steel, bolt carrier. It's relatively light. So the first thing that made this actually perform very well is these brass guides, which were brought out later on, and they transformed it because they made sure the bolt was centered in the receiver every single time, which gave you more reliability. And the other thing that you had to do, I'm not sure you'll be able to see in there. Let's get a torch actually, so you can see a little bit easier. Oh, let's make sure it's not in night vision mode, and you'll be able to see. So down the bottom there is an enhanced feed ramp. You see there's a little bit of rust on the inside of this receiver. That's how old it is. It's been used for maritime as well. My other MP5 that I got actually had a very poor hop up and had to be reassembled from the factory. But this one was absolutely fantastic. The range is incredible on this one. So we just reinsert the bolt carrier in there correctly. This is the problem with looking through the camera. I'm still not used to this, guys. I'm still not a YouTuber. Insert your recoil rod, your trigger housing, put that pin in. I always put these pins left to right. The reason for that is because if you press the receiver against yourself, it doesn't push the pin out the other side because you're just pushing the pin in further. That's a trick I learnt from a gentleman who didn't like wearing gloves, who actually took part in the Iranian embassy siege. We had a conversation about MP5 some years ago. We were discussing this, and he was like, "You should turn your pins around," because he was looking at this. So those two upgrade parts really made a difference. The enhanced feed ramp and the brass guides. They've made this a very good performing rifle. gas blowback wise, and there's a magnet sticking to the receiver to show you how steel it is. So we'll go through what's steel on this. The cocking handle support on these early ones was steel, as is the receiver, obviously. I've changed for steel front sight. The muzzle device was always steel. The sling loop was always steel. The sling catch was always steel. The end cap is steel. The release lever is not, and obviously the butt plate is not. The rails for the sliding stock are not steel, I don't think. No, they're not steel. They're alloy. So one thing that's different on the real stock is that those rails are real. Today's background, by the way, is a target from the SAS kill house. A genuine target was taken from the kill house by a friend of mine who used to work over on camp. He kindly brought a lot of these targets back for me. This one I always laughed at because it kind of looked like Hannibal from A-Team, if you remember that. So yeah, there's the MP5 with its upgrade. It works absolutely fantastic. Later on, VFC decided they were going to do a version 2, which on this one, if you want to adjust the hop, it takes a really long, thin Allen key that you have to put all the way down the receiver. It's really fiddly to turn it. Once my hops are set, I don't mess with them. But the new version actually puts the hop up underneath the handguard, which is nice in that it's easier to adjust. But for me, it just gets in the way of the handguard. I'm not going to push this pin out because it's very, very stiff. But obviously that comes away just like any other MP5. As I said, the cocking handle support was steel. Later on, they turned that into an alloy for some inexplicable reason. But you could buy the Crusader steel replacement part, which I have done for some of my others. It's a quite cheap part for a steel part, actually. Or you could use a real one because they fit too. But these are actually fantastic. Later on, Umarex started putting a lot more markings on. On this one, it was on the lower here, where I've painted over with an armory number. It kind of disguises it. Obviously, because mine has got a real lower on it, there's no Umarex markings on it anyway. It does say Cal 9mm by 19 on the receiver, but it does have a very small, let's see if the camera will focus. There's a very small 6mm there, and then the serial number. You can see my receiver is quite battered. This is very well used. I've used this a hell of a lot. Also, we have here is a Madball Gemtech suppressor, which goes over the tri-lug and locks in place. You cannot use this suppressor if you're using a Surefire handguard. I do have Surefire handguard here. My genuine one is on my HK53 at the moment, so I'll show you that when we get to the HK53 video. As I said, I do have the real tropical grip. All real grips fit straight on. The rear sight fits straight on. I think the mag release fits straight on. I think there might be a real one in there, but I can't remember because it's so long ago. But this shoots actually very, very good. It feels solid. It's absolutely fantastic. When VFC brought out the version 2, they did bring out a version 2 upgrade kit, which is this, which I kind of got just in case I intended to change over. And as you can see, I've not opened this up. I got this from Hong Kong quite some time ago, but I don't know if you can see there, but it's a less realistic bolt face. It's all molded black affair. It's not a separate bolt head. It's a different recoil system with a fitted recoil guide and spring. It does give a bit more of a recoil impulse, but it takes away from some of the other realism. And as I use my stuff for training and film stuff, I left it as is for the moment. It also comes with the disconnector and the auto reset. It also comes with an enhanced feeding ramp, which I've already got, and a new magazine. So if I do want to improve the winter performance of my VFC MP5, I can do that. But I've just not done it as yet. Alongside this, I still kept hold of an original VFC MP5 SD, which I've also fitted with a real lower and selector. The difference to this one is I've actually got a, where's that torch again? So you can see a little bit easier. A Crusader steel bolt carrier is inside there. I think this has also got the a Crusader reinforcement cocking handle support. Got a magnet. Yep, that does have the Crusader one. You can see it's a slightly lighter grey. The MP5 SD, the suppressor goes all the way down and it replicates the vents in the barrel as well. So if I take that suppressor off, the barrel's a lot longer because it goes down the suppressor. I'll try and get the handguard off, which can be a little bit of fun, I'm not going to lie. So VFC are the only airsoft manufacturer I know of to really truly replicate how the SD was built. Get that torch again, and you can see the ports there, little drillings in the outer barrel. That's because on the real one, the SD vents off some gas of the supersonic rounds to make sure that even supersonic rounds come out of the muzzle at subsonic speeds, which is how it's so quiet. The real SD cannot use subsonic rounds because they just wouldn't cycle the action properly. Roller lock systems require quite a bit of pressure. The difference on the top of this one, as you can see, Umarex then started white lasering these markings. Can you focus, please, camera? Try and get the camera to focus, if it will. No. It's a white laser. You can see how much it stands out. And then here the stamping actually says MP5 SD, as it would on the real one. Stock's very, very similar. Everything else is super similar to the other one. This performs really well as well. I've barely used this one. I used it for a couple of training events when I was playing a role that was a little bit sneaky. And it's shot great, to be honest with you. The couple of shots I've used it in the event, but mostly it's just been shot by me decking around. So to put that aside for a moment, I'm going to now bring out, this is a VFC AEG. This actually has the solid stock on it from the gas blowback. What I would always, sorry camera, what I would always advise if you're going to buy an MP5 is buy the sliding stock option, whether that be an AEG or it be the gas blowbacks. Buy the sliding stock option and get the solid stock separate. Reason being is to buy the solid stock is cheaper than buying a sliding stock assembly. And also, if it's an AEG, whether that be VFC or TM, if you buy the sliding stock version, your wiring's wired to the front. And if you can then put solid stock on and it doesn't mess with anything. If you buy the solid stock version and the wiring's to the back, you're going to have to reroute the wiring to the front. On the VFC AEG, it doesn't matter because the wiring comes across the top here. So when you're using the solid stock, you can just put the battery in the rear. But that's the VFC AEG. This is a steel receiver version, as you can see. It does have a subdued upper. This is actually a Hong Kong spec version, so it doesn't have all the white markings on it, which is why I picked this one up. It does have the Umarex crap here, but it doesn't have any white lettering here, and it says MP5N for navy across the top. Navy because it has the A4/A5 trigger group we spoke about. The selector on this AEG is actually really quite good for an AEG, but the gearbox in these isn't actually that great, as you've probably heard, but it does shoot fine. I've used it a couple of times, it shoots fine. This is a VFC Surefire handguard with some dust on it. I've got real Surefire and I've got VFC ones. Honestly, go for the VFC one. They're actually as solid as the real one. They don't have the checkering here, the diamond cut. But the torch is actually better on the VFC than it is on the real Surefire, because the real Surefire is only 60 lumens. These are about 120. And they're less fragile. My real one started cracking around the front pinhole. And then to compare to that, I have just got an AEG, a Tokyo Marui AEG. This is the NGRS version of the Tokyo Marui MP5, and the reason I've got this on the table and what's kind of pushed me to make this video today rather than later is because I want to compare the build on a TM NGRS to a gas blowback, because in the past that's incomparable, like absolutely incomparable. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly move this aside. I'm going to pause you for a second, and then we're going to go and compare those directly. So, quick break there. Well, I just cleared a bit of the crap off the table and drank a cup of tea. I like to compare these two together here, because we know that the VFC is the gold standard when it comes to externals. It really is. And that's with most platforms, but especially with the H&K roller lock. And Tokyo Marui has always been miles behind in the externals department. They generally shoot okay. I've been around airsoft for far too long, and I remember that TM have failures too. And I remember TM have their shortcomings. They innovate for sure, and everyone else makes things better. It's the truth. And if it wasn't the truth, people wouldn't rip a TM apart and replace it with all the fucking shit inside it if it wasn't. So, what's changed, really? Well, firstly, I think we'll just mention the WE, because people are going to be screaming in the comments right now, what about the WE Apache? I've had WE Apaches, I've had the A series, so I had the A5 that I also had a solid stock for, so I could have A4 too. I also had an MP5K. They shoot great, and their efficiency was better than these VFC ones. The new VFC ones, the version 2s, they're even better than the WE, but the WEs actually shoot great out of the box, but they're not a great replica compared to the VFC. Externally, their magazines are a lot squarer, so if I grab a real magazine and a VFC magazine, you'll see they're a very similar profile. There's a slightly square bit on this central base plate part, but the shape of the magazine's identical. The casing is pretty much identical. The length, height, width, everything is identical. But the WE one's way bigger and squarer, more close to the 9mm UMP sort of style. They also had an open front mag, which I hate. Early ones, I had some of the early mags, and they were way too curved, so they were curved like this, and they just looked fucking wrong. And the bolt carrier, it was a very flat bolt. I don't know if you can see on the VFC just how it goes in. Even the TM doesn't quite replicate that because there's a gearbox and hop up in the way. But the WE one had no excuse. It should have had a correct shape bolt, and it didn't. One good thing about the WE is it shot great. It was gas blowback, barrel and hop compatible, so really easy to change it out. And also it took the standard RA Tech MPAS for all WE guns, so it made it easy to tune to your specific requirements. Whereas this the VFC one, this is the only VFC gun I'm aware of that doesn't take the standard VFC floating valve. It's a smaller floating valve, so you can't use the CL Project Design NPAS. You have to have a different power down solution. I'm using, I think it's a Bowmaster power down valve or something like that. It's been years, so that's that really. So I got rid of the WE ones in the end because I knew I was never going to use them, because even though I knew the WE performed better in cold weather at the time, whenever I came to using an MP5, I was like, I took the VFC every time, so I just got rid of the WEs. Now this actually does a better job of replicating the externals, I think, than the Apache does. I've had hands-on time with real MP5s. I'm going to remove the magazine for a moment. The magazine on this is actually quite a similar dimension. It's not that far off. It's actually similar roundness, Let's compare it to a real one. It's actually super close. So that's one of the reasons why your regular TM AEG mags will not fit. The other one is that obviously this has the active bolt stop for the NGRS. And likewise, it will only go in real style dual clamps, not in the AEG style clamps. Also, the TM NGRS will not use AEG receiver clamps because real MP5s are just a touch bit wider, hence the VFC. So you need either real clamps like this or a VFC clamp like this. This one actually came with my NGRS. I've already got a couple of those anyway. The TM will also take the suppressors for the VFC one. This fits perfectly on there, but it does come with its own suppressor adapter in the box. That's a VFC handguard on it. Although one thing I have done is there's two small ribs. I've chiseled those two small ribs out just to give me a bit more battery space if I need it, and to make sure it doesn't chop the wires. But aside from that, that fits fine. It also fits the real handguard, the wide handguard that we showed here, but that's basically the same as the TM one. So there's that. TM have done a fantastic job with the selector. It's the most positive AEG selector I have ever seen. It's absolutely superb. The mouldings, everything look great. The weight, they are almost identical in weight. They really are. I think the TM might be a touch heavier, but that's because of the gearbox workings adding to the weight. I don't think TM use steel on this. No, there's not. It's not steel, but it's a really good aluminium. And it looks great. The stock is very positive, but I would say smoother than either the VFC or the real one, because both the VFC and the real one have got a slightly different feel than the TM, but still all very very good feeling. I've test fired this. It's 300 FPS out of the box on a 0.2. So it's like 0.98 joule, which is, you know, the high end of what Japan have. If you haven't seen how the NGRS works, you have to chamber a new round. It's got active bolt stop. So when you put a new magazine in, you have to slap the charging handle, or at least cock the charging handle before it'll fire again. They fire from a 72 round mid-cap magazine, or you can get a 200 round high cap if you're a twat. I've got a couple more of these mid-caps coming. But overall, they're just absolutely incredible. As an AEG side by side with VFC, I think that they're a great complement. If you're going to be using this, to have this as an AEG backup, it feels as good in most regards. I don't think there's actually much steel on there at all. In fact, no. Even the flash hider's alloy. I think the charging handle support might... Oh, there's a steel cover on the bolt, so the bolt face is steel. But nothing else really is. That's just the pin for the lower. So the pins are steel. So there's a lot more steel on the gas blower. We would expect that. They're actually a very similar price. I think the VFC nowadays is a little bit more expensive. So really it comes down to, do you want an AEG or do you want a gas blowback? Personally, I use gas blowback more, but I had an NGRS Mark 18 as my token AEG that I might take out. I realised I was never using it. It's just sat around. And that if I was going to take an NGRS out, it would more likely go out if it was an MP5, because MP5s are cooler. So there's that. Obviously you can put the standard H&K slings on there. There's a firing video for both this and the SD on the channel in the shorts. I'll do a shorts of this firing. Obviously the recoil is nowhere near as compared to the gas blowback, although even with the gas blowback with the steel bolt, SMGs don't have a huge amount of kick. Even the real ones don't. They're actually relatively soft, especially because MP5s are relatively heavy for a submachine gun. of its size, because it being a stamped steel receiver. So you're not really missing a huge amount of recoil, but you are getting a very similar feel with the NGRS. Also, TM seem to have really improved their plastics. This plastic is not old school TM feel at all. It actually feels very, very similar to the VFC and the real ones. Very, very similar indeed. And the same goes for the handguard that I've taken off, because obviously torch handguards are the best. I have a rail kit here as well, and nighttime rail kit, but I'm not putting that on because, to be perfectly honest, it's fucking ugly. Same, I took the top rail off because it's an MP5. Heckler & Koch SMGs and roller locks had the best iron sights pretty much of anything. So if you can't use these iron sights, then it's you, not the guns. And all you really need is that torch handguard. And yeah, they're just absolutely fantastic. So it's not very often you'll hear me talk about an AEG, let alone praise one, and certainly not Tokyo Marui usually. But I am praising this one really highly. I'm super, super impressed. It surprised me. Because it's got 72 round magazines, I've ordered another 2, so I'll have 3. Those 3 magazines are more ammo than what I'd carry in the gas blowback ones, so I don't need any more than that. I might get one more just to round off the plate carry or mag pouches or whatever I'm using. As far as like fit and finish and things like that go, it's worth noting here and now that everybody goes on about how oh, this airsoft company, their finishing's really rough. Have a look at this real handguard and the seams and the finishing. This is a genuine Heckler & Koch piece. This is not a Pakistani Ordnance Factory or a Turkish copy. This is a genuine H&K. And likewise, the seam lines running, they've worn off a bit because it's getting old, but there's still seam lines running down it. The selector on these is like Manly. we use Manly. You can activate it, but it's pretty damn stiff. Which is why I guess back in the 80s the drill was as soon as they entered the building, the safety catch was off, and it was a trigger discipline thing rather than a flicking the safety on and off that you see with the AR-15s in use these days. The ambi safety from the TM is a lot easier to manipulate on the fly, although I'm still practicing the same drills I've always been using, so probably nothing will change for me on that one. One thing to note is the TM does have Tokyo Marui stamped on the side of the receiver, which is really annoying, but it's to be expected. But it does have the MP5 deep stamps, which look quite realistic on the top. Battery goes in the handguard. You do have to be a little bit inventive with the space. The batteries that I was supplied with it are these ones. I'm going to get some split cell ones because it would just be easier with a torch handguard to use a split cell. I have got split cell ones, but they're all on Deans, so I'm going to have to get some ones with Tamiya, because there's no way I'm cutting off Deans and fitting Tamiyas to anything. It's just a bit counterproductive. The trigger response on this is actually really good because it's got a new magnetic MOSFET system that Tokyo Marui call the M system. So it's actually really snappy. You don't get a single shot lockup, which is a problem with almost all Tokyo Marui AEGs, but especially NGRSs. The reason why most people with NGRS M4 fit a Titan, or before that a Spectre, was because they lock up horrendously on single shot. This doesn't, because it's got that M system, which is great. This does fit the solid stock from VFC as well. It takes a little bit of finessing, but that's because of the solid stock sort of the way they go on. You do have to finesse them a little bit, even on the gas blowback. It fits on nice and tight, works great, doesn't interfere with anything. So if I do want to go a bit dog soldiers, I can do with the NGRS as well. But if there's anything else, put it in the comments, and we'll probably revisit MP5s at some point, because there's a lot of interest in them recently, as I said. Yeah, it'd be nice to to do a bit more with the H&K roller locks because they are absolutely fantastic. But I really wanted to do a quick show of comparing these VFC MP5s, the older ones especially, against the NGRS. And also wanted to really touch on a little bit about what's changed with the new version 2 of these, which is they've cheapened some of the materials a little bit, so they got rid of a bit of the steel. They've made the markings a little bit more prominent for airsoft, but they have improved the bolt system and the hopper in them, but not enough for me to want to change. I do have a HK53 which has the new system in it, and it's really impressive. I also have a G3 which has the newer excuse me, newer system in it, and it's impressive, but this is fine for me. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope that we can talk down in the comments, we engage a little bit more, and if there's anything more you want to see on these or any of the other things that I've got here, please don't hesitate to ask. Thanks again.